Welcome to the Collective Genius Podcast, the show for real estate investors who are looking to scale.
Welcome into the Collective Genius Podcast, the podcast for real estate investors that want to grow and scale beyond just business. So today, I am honored to have a longtime CG member, and I know he's longtime because he's one of the first people that when I returned to the Collective Genius in this role, one of the first classes that I brought in was this young man from Springfield, Missouri. This young man with now a big beard, Mr. Andrew Newlon. Welcome in, my friend. Good to have you on the full-length pod instead of just the live one that we did at the show. You gave tons of value. Welcome into the full-length pod.
Thank you, Leon. I appreciate it.
So I said, young man, you're still a young man. The beard is much longer today than I don't even think you had the beard when I first met you. But there's a lot of wisdom that has come over the years, and this is what I like to call conversations with the genius. So we're going to talk about your journey here today, but why don't we start off with, I told everyone where you operate in Springfield, Missouri, which is a great mid-sized Midwestern market. Tell people what it is that you focus on in your market from a real estate perspective.
Yep. So Springfield, Missouri, southwest corner of Missouri, also known as the Ozarks. Our town is about 160,000 people. If you look at the MSA, the immediate towns that we service or invest in, it's about 240,000. So pretty small, especially compared to most of the markets in Collective Genius. And our bread and butter are the three foundations. We got rental properties, we fix and flip, and we wholesale. Wholesale is about 70% of our revenue, 20 to 30% is our flipping, and then we'll pick up the good rentals whenever a good one comes across our plate, or we're sitting in a good cash position.
Or like typical Midwest operators like myself, when you mess up one, you just hold it until you no longer have a mess up, right?
Yep. There's a few of those in the portfolio.
You and me both. How many doors total?
So I sold off over half what we had, so we're down in the 20s now. Now we're rebuilding that portfolio.
Now, this is something that I've heard a lot of recently. We'll dive into that. I've also leaned up a little bit on my portfolio as well, so we'll dive into that. Have you, like a lot of real estate investors, have you your exit strategy moved over the last few years, where you now doing primarily, the good majority is wholesale? Has that fluctuated over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off buying rentals. That was our whole focus. I had a former partner, and we just wanted to build a small portfolio, but we were naive in understanding like what it would take to retire off of that. And so we replaced our jobs so we can scale by wholesaling. And so we quit our jobs, and we did that for a short time. Then we started fixing and flipping, and we did all the work ourselves at the beginning. And as it grew, it was a good blend. We really want to fix and flip. You're maximizing profit. We did a lot of the work. I was more on the business sales side. My business partner was more on the construction rehab side. And we were kind of had a good steady pace. We buy a flip, wholesale property, buy a rental. Buy a flip, wholesale property, buy a rental. It's kind of, we're rotating through it. And then we started hiring in 2017-ish a team. So we were able to do more deals at once. And then when 2020 hit, it was all flip. I mean, we were wholesaling here and there, but it was so easy to flip, and we're maximizing profits. In fact, you could buy a house, wait 6 months, completely mess up the rehab, and make more money just because you waited 6 extra months. So during 2020 to 2022, it was all all fix and flip. And then once rates went up, we went the complete opposite, knee-jerk reaction, and went all wholesale. My intention was to protect the company. Like, I didn't want to be vulnerable. We had 40-something transactions going on at once at the end of 2022, going into 2023. And so I just want to put us in a safe spot. Well, it did the opposite. It actually diminished our profit margin because we didn't decrease our expenses appropriately. So we went wholesaling. Obviously, your profit or average profit goes down after that. And so that led to a whole year of that. And then we've gone back to a healthy balance now, where we wholesale the houses we truly don't want, or the volume to pay the bills, and then we fix and flip the easier ones, or ones that we like more.
So there's so much to get into there. I want to start at the beginning and then work our way towards today. You mentioned a partner, but even before then, you were military. Before you jumped into real estate, You were Army, correct?
Correct. Yes.
And how long did you serve in the military?
I was in the Army Reserves for 10 and a half years.
10 and a half years.
Yes.
That's not normal, right?
I mean, for reserves, because you still have a civilian world. It's easier, much easier. Most of my friends did 6 years,
Oh,
6 years
good.
in going through reserves, and then a good portion landing at 10 to 14 years, and then to go beyond that, you really have to stick it out for a full 20.
As a reservist, were you working in real estate, during your civilian time?
Yeah, that's exactly how I got started. So I graduated high school, went into the Army, went to Iraq, came back, and I had a friend that I knew from church. His dad owned a whole bunch of rental properties. And so he had asked me, hey, would you come over and hang drywall in this house? Would you help me install a fence on this house? Would you, lay flooring in this house? And he just needed a handyman, and I didn't really have much to do. I started going back to college, so it's kind of like the hybrid. I was training with the reserves, I was going to college, and then I was working on these rental properties. And my former partner, his dad, did construction, and he had hired him to work on the houses too. So as we're working, the first dad kept telling us, hey, if I knew what I know now at your age, I would have started much younger. And he only had to tell us that 2 or 3 different times, or maybe there's something to that. And so after my second deployment, I came home and we just ripped the Band-Aid off. We went straight to a wholesaler in town. We didn't know he was a wholesaler, didn't know what that was, but we said, hey, we want to buy a rental property. And he sold us 2 on a lease option or rent own. So we gave them a little money up front. We paid them monthly rent. So we completely remodeled it using credit cards and our own cash, working late nights, New Year's Eve, 0 degrees outside, weekends, in between classes. Completely remodeled it and asked 13 different banks. The 13th bank finally said, yes, we will refinance you.
Wow.
And refinanced them to 2 properties and had no idea what it would evolve into 12 years later.
So that started the journey. As you were telling that story, I was like, hold on, this sounds like a rich dad story. You had the one dad and another dad.
Yeah.
Did you have a poor dad and a rich dad?
Yeah. Well, my dad was just middle worker, worked his butt off all my life, still does to this day. Great, responsible, loving dad. But he's just a blue collar worker. I didn't understand business. No one in my family has a business. And so I didn't understand that part, but being around the first friend's dad who has a portfolio, and built it very successfully. And the second friend's dad that ran a remodeling company, very small, but he was responsible for driving business and clients and accounting and everything. It kind of exposed me to like, hey, there's more than just searching for what I'm going to do after college.
Love hearing that. Did you have in your family? Did you have any entrepreneurs?
No, not that I can think off the top of my head. Not my immediate family. All good jobs and very purposeful driven jobs, but no one that has created their own company.
I love, what you were, you were exposed to something, you liked it, you were like, oh, I want to go this route. And the great thing about real estate is that even if that didn't work out for you, you knew you were hireable. You knew you could get a job in the trades, or you could get a job working for some of these companies. So you had nothing to lose at that point because you're still going to school, you're still in the military, you got no kids and no family at that time. So go for it. You did. And it led to where we are today. So as you were going through this journey, you talked about the partner. Obviously, a lot of people that are listening to this may have had a partner a lot. I see it a lot. And generally, about the time that members get to our select level is when I see partner splits. It's inevitable. Like there are very few partnerships that I've seen work at a super high level. And we've got tons of them at the premier level. But generally where I see these partnership splits is when, you've gotten to a point now, it's generally over $1 million of gross annual revenue, and partner split. One doesn't want to necessarily work as hard as the other. One was just a money person. The other one was working hard. There's always something that I see lead to the split. Was this similar for you with your partnership?
Yes. So I've been part of 2 partnerships. And what I've learned through my own experience, I actually been part of 3 partnerships, and through my own experience and watching other people, and I've seen, and you've seen many come and go through CG, partners, and they all have good intentions.
Yeah.
But there's 2 things that happen. One, why you got in it, or what the value you bring to the table changes. So most partners partner up, I believe, because you need time, money, or skills. You need someone to help you do the labor, help you write the letters, door knock, drive for dollars, whatever. You split up the time. Someone brings money to the table. You don't have the money, but this person has the money, so I'll do the work if you finance it. Or someone has skills. So specifically, and our partnership was very great for very many years. But at that time, he brought the remodel skills. I had very little to that. And so for me to buy a house, it was very daunting and intimidating, but I knew he knew how to remodel a house. And then I brought the time and some of the finances. Well, as you scale a company, you now grow those resources. So 5 years, 10 years down the road, doing $1 million plus gross revenue, money is not necessarily an issue anymore. You get lines of credit, or you have retained earnings, or you have private investors. Time's not an issue because you've hired a team. You've scaled people that can do the work that you don't have time to do or don't want to do. And skills becomes not an issue because you've developed the skills over time, or now know how to hire instead of partner up. So I think the first thing is, I think a lot of times what we get into partnerships for can be replaced down the road with good intentions and inevitable, but I think that's one thing. The second thing, and Gary Harper taught me this, is all partnerships must be aligned on 3 things. You have to have the same purpose, you have to have the same core values, and you have to have the same goals. Now, 9 out of 10 times, you probably are aligned on that when you form a partnership. You're not going to hang out with someone and form a partnership if your core values aren't aligned, right? You're not going to start a business if it's 2 different goals or 2 different purposes. So my personal experience, that's what changed. Core values never changed. The purpose changed slightly, but it was more the goals. So for example, my first partnership, he just wanted a handful of free and clear rental properties and enjoy life with his family. There's nothing wrong with that. I got a taste of, like, I can grow something and create a bigger impact. And so here he is trying to hold properties and not work as much and spend more time with family. Here I am trying to see, what can I grow now so the future is brighter? And so let's do more deals, more fix and flips. And so our daily activities were not in sync, and that breeds resentment, and then we can't set the right goals, and we're not meeting goals, and then finally next thing, neither one of us are working as hard as we want. So in my experience, those are the 2 things that would drive a wedge in a partnership.
Would you do anything different now, knowing what you know, or do you feel like you had to go through that to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think the question would be like, would you do another partnership? And it's easy to say no, but I am very grateful for both partnerships I went in. I am who I am today as a leader, as a person, as a servant because of that. I've learned a lot of lessons. I would do the partnership slightly different. I wish I would have known those 2 principles at the beginning. I wish I would have known going into partnerships that it almost with certainty they would end one day. Because if you know that, then it takes all the pressure off. And then it has to be in writing. Like, absolutely, without a doubt, I wish we would have said, if this falls out, what does that look like? Because that's where it gets really messy and a lot of hurt feelings coming after that.
No one wants a prenup, but everyone at the end wishes that they would have signed one. And that's really what that business agreement is. I think you don't go into it. Most people, especially early on, don't go into it thinking it'll ever end. So that's great advice that you just gave. In fact, I'd like to recap those if we can here. If someone is considering a partnership, maybe they're both W-2 right now and they're about to jump into a full-time partnership in this industry, first and foremost, get it in writing, as Andrew said, and assume that it's going to break up at some point. Make sure that you're aligned on who gets what and what that looks like, so there can be an amicable split. I will say this as someone that has been through partner splits myself, not at the level of what you have gone through, but I will say that it's never going to be the same. Like, the relationship is always different. Even if it ends amicably, it's still different. So know that going in. And if you know that going in, you might not want to do this with your best friend, right? Or a family member, right? So that going in. And then the others, I love what you mentioned about Gary. Can you repeat those again? Because someone's on the fence right now. You got to know these things.
Yeah, you have to align your purpose. What's your purpose in life? And alignment doesn't have to be the same, but they have to fit together, right? And so if it's to serve a greater good or create an everlasting impact, but the other one's to have fun at all costs, or to, not work. Those two are not going to be aligned. So the purpose of why you're doing what you're doing has to be aligned. Your core values have to be aligned. And I think everyone understands that concept. And I think that's a natural thing. It's not going to be a partnership if that's not aligned. And then the goals. Are you wanting to buy 20 free and clear properties, or do you want to build a wholesaling business that is 500 deals a year with 30 employees? Because both goals present different action plans with different outcomes.
The biggest thing I will say of all of that is just make sure that you're aligned on the purpose. All of those are important. But knowing what I know from having spent 7 years on this side, watching people grow their businesses and lose their love for the business, it's because they weren't serving a greater purpose, right? Gary talks about this quite often about, his purpose is to give away X amount of money to the Lord's work, right? If you don't have that purpose and you're not all in and rowing in the same direction, you get to my age and you're just short of 50 and you're like, why am I doing this? What is the reason behind this? You lose some of that joy because you're not continuing to help others, because money, if you do this correctly, money won't be an issue. Right. And for most members that have put in the painstaking work and the hours and the grind and staying up on New Year's and no heat in a place and remodeling, all those things that we did. I'm a huge Kansas City Royals fan. I remember painting during the Royals World Series one day, and I had no television in the house. I had to listen to it by radio. Like, those are the sacrifices that you make early on, and you do those type of things and continue it, you're going to have a lot of success. But if it's just about money, that partnership too will split, because one is going to want, potentially more, and the other one's going to say, I'm good with where I'm at. So aligning for purpose for something bigger than just a business, especially in communities like Springfield and my market in Wichita, we can make such a great impact on, 250 in MSA and 500 of MSA. There's such a great impact that we can have in our communities. Some great takeaways, I should say, from, those lessons. So at some point here, you actually, in one of your partnerships early on, had learned about the collective genius. Now, this wasn't in the current business. This was prior to me actually coming back on this side. You actually came to your first collective genius members meeting. How did you find out about this? What did you think about your first meeting? And that, because I believe that was like 2017.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to come in 2017 because we had created a JV partnership with a local wholesaler. We kind of joined forces, and they were members of CG at the time. And so it was the Christmas event, so the December event of 2017. And I showed up, just a young, I don't want to say punk, but you're just a young kid.
At that time?
What was that? 8 years ago. So 29, I think.
Oh, wow.
29.
You were young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I walked in just like glazed eyes. Like, first off, there's like Sean Terry and Cody Sperber and some names and podcasts, Matt. There's all these different, Brett Snodgrass, like a lot of podcasts I've been listening to and trying to learn from. And all of a sudden they're in this room and I'm shaking hands with people. And then here I am, all right, 2 deals a month. Look at me. And they're like, oh, you're kind of cool. You manage 2,000 properties or whatever. So it was very eye-opening. It was inspiring. It challenged me very quickly. Like, hey, there's more to this. That partnership did not last very long. Their business took a left-hand turn, and we just kind of did a short little stint with it. But because of where life led them, they didn't renew their CG membership. And so I jumped on it right away. I was like, I definitely want to be in that room. I was part of another mastermind leading right up to that. And that mastermind kind of closed the doors and is handed off to something else. And so I wanted something new, and we jumped right in. And my first meeting was December of 2018. And missed only one in those 7 years, 8 years.
I remember. I didn't know. You have only missed one.
Only one, when my son was born. That's it.
I didn't know. I didn't realize you had only missed one. In that time frame, but I do remember your first meeting, 2018. You're the only person that handed me your credit card. I remember like it was yesterday. I've had people say, "Hey, just run the card right now, man." This is back in our old format. But I remember you handed me your credit card like a couple hours in, going, dude, I'm in. Let's go. Let's lock and load this. One of the things that you just mentioned is really got me. December of 2018, I started having conversations, actually probably 19, with Jason about what you just mentioned that first time you were in the room. You had a full-time business, but you're in the room with people that had, a couple thousand doors, were doing 300-400 deals a year. And I was seeing people like yourself that were 29, 30 years old that were getting lost in the room. And, to be fair to you, going back, you would have qualified for what is now Select,
Right.
to start your journey, which would have been the better fit for you. Quite frankly, looking back at that. But that said, you were one of those people that was in a very small market and realized that, hey, I'm not going to be able to do all these things. I'm going to focus on what works best for me. And obviously it's evolved over the years. But what were some of those early lessons that you learned and applied that really helped you catapult this to where it is today?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is steady growth. Because you're right, in 2018, for 12 months, we sat there and learned what's turnkey and we're going to run podcasts and do education and all these different things. You mean we can build out an entire sales team of acquisition reps and dispo and wholesale and funds. And so we're learning all these different things and we're trying to apply this stuff. And I remember the conversation in 2019, we sat down and we're like, we're seeing, year over year, 10, 20% growth, which I'll take that nowadays all day long consistently. But there's some people in the room that were having significant more growth. I'm like, why are we not there yet? And so I kid you not, I guess it's about the fall of 2019, we hired 5 virtual assistants out of the Philippines to start cold calling. I went from 1 acquisition rep to 3 acquisition reps. I hired a second lead manager. We doubled our direct mail campaign and we tripled our marketing budget. We added a second market in Texas. We switched CRM systems from REI Black Book to Podio. We got a new office and I had a baby, all in a 6-week window. Thinking, hey, if we do all this, like, how can we not succeed? And it broke the company really fast. We essentially took a whole bunch of stuff, threw it at the wall to see what stuck. But we just turned our back to it and walked away and nothing stuck. And it crumbled really fast. So I think that's actually the biggest lesson. It was like scale and grow responsibly. What's that one thing that make the biggest difference? Let's focus on that and let everything else wait for another day.
What you just mentioned is exactly why we started Select. It was the first community beyond what is now called our Premier Group, but Collective Genius, there was only one group, and you would have people like yourself that would come in and really only needed help with consistent marketing, operations, just a few tweaks to take their business to the next level. But they would come in and they would hear about these people having education companies making X amount, doing, in addition to real estate, doing education. Or they would hear about people, especially in Midwest markets, that were doing turnkey rentals for foreign investors or for California-based investors that couldn't get, good rental numbers and margins in California. So you have all of these things that are fun and are, I had the same thing. It was like, we should be doing this and we should be doing that. But the reality is you really only need the one thing to make a massive difference. And for us, I've said this many times on the pod, for us, it was just being consistent with direct mail. We already had television. We just, at that time, 2017, we just weren't 2017? Goodness. No, it's 2014. We weren't consistent with direct mail where everyone else was. And that's why they were doing a couple hundred deals a year. And that led to us creating Select for that very reason. We saw people leaving after a year or two going, man, this has been great, but it's also been a detriment because we need to stabilize because we tried to do too many things out of the gates. So you go through that, you have to right size the business again, right? You have to go back down and realize this is when the partner split, I believe, happened. And so now you're sitting there back at basically ground zero. How do you rebuild this by yourself and, really focused on growing it back? How do you start that process?
So that all started in the fall of 2019, and we didn't realize we were tumbling into spring of 2020. I don't know if you remember that year or any significant things that happened that year, but me, you, and several others were hanging out at the bar at Torrey Pines CG, March of 2020, and I
2020.
just presented that day how we essentially ran out of money in our company, because back then the hot seats were like an ask, like here's what's going on. I shared a lesson, but my ask was like, if you're in my shoes, what would you do this year to get out of this? And it was very vulnerable, very transparent. Like we're broke, we broke the system. What do we do now? And I was humbled, and we're sitting at the bar, and the news popped on, and airlines are closed, NCAA tournaments closed, the NBA's closed. And that was probably one of the absolute scariest moments of my entire life, because I just said, we're out, we're broke. And now the world, at that moment, we thought that's it. The world's crashing. And so I came home, had to face some emotions and kind of look myself in the mirror and said, I don't have a choice. Like, let's pick up and move forward. The blessing in disguise that me and probably every real estate investor should admit to was that was the best market we've ever experienced. So I wouldn't be here, Leon. I would not be in real estate, no doubt in my mind, had it gone the opposite direction. I was broke. There was nothing. I had no momentum at that point. But fortunate for me, the market picked up, and I was in the right position. I didn't give up, and we rode that wave. And that wave allowed me to replenish the money, kind of turn over the team, fine tune some systems and processes, hire Sharper. Sharper came in that year. As the end of that year, as my partner and I decided, hey, enough's enough. All that was a blessing in disguise. And so I think God gave me a second opportunity. I think I positioned myself to stay in and not give up quick enough. And so because of COVID, I was given a second chance. We rode that wave for two and a half years. And then it happened essentially again, but to different reasons. So rebuilt because of COVID. COVID gave me the tools and the ability to do that.
Everyone that's listening to this that was in business during that time, or that was just about to go full time, has to thank the market, because I remember that was one of those events where I saw the biggest and the best scared at that bar, that I never thought I would see shaking in their boots. Like those people that you mentioned before that you were looking up to when you first came into Collective Genius, almost every single one of them. That, in fact, people were rushing home because they didn't know if they would be able to get home.
So I was going to say, it believed in Earth.
You never forget that. You just never will forget that. And it could have gone the wrong way. I just remember us immediately on the way back preparing for all hands on deck. I think that's where this community is in its best, is when the unknown is about to happen. April of 22, same thing happened. All hands on deck. Let's go, guys. How are we going to attack this versus just waiting to see what happens? No, we're going after it. I know a lot of us, move some assets because we had our first call and it's like, hey, if you got any projects right now, you may want to move. No, you move those now. And if, the market does go the right way, you'll still have plenty of opportunity. But I do know that we were selling off some assets, and then all of a sudden the market got super hot, and we're all very, very thankful for that. I know that as you're building this back up, thankful for what happened. Obviously, March, April of 22 happens where interest rates go up and the market starts to normalize. You mentioned before our call here that what's working for you the best right now. There's a couple different things, but one of them I love hearing, because everybody thinks that when I say, scale, if that's what everyone wants to do, but that doesn't mean that you have to hire 10 people or have 20, 30 employees. Scale just means growing your business to run a business and not just have this thing as a hustle where if you were, something happened to you, you no longer have a business. It's creating a business. And I don't necessarily mean you got to have a bunch of employees, but I know that's something that you're working on right now that is working well for you. So if you don't mind sharing that, what are you really focused on from an operation standpoint right now?
Yeah, a little over 2 years ago, I had to scale back because COVID allowed us to scale so big, and it made it easy. As a leader, I made some poor choices and kept people on the team too long that were either weren't core value fits or non-performers. And we scaled the revenue, but we didn't scale the profit. In fact, the opposite happened. And I was just throwing more bolts and nuts on the company, and we're growing, and it looks cool and feels good, and but then we look up one day, it's like the profit margin is going the opposite direction for a lot more work. This doesn't make sense. So I made some really tough decisions 2.5 years ago, kind of turned the whole team over. And at that time, me and the people that were still with me, we shrunk the business as tight as possible. When our expenses decreased by about 60%. We leaned up and we committed to that budget. We said, we will grow, but we're not growing our expenses. We're growing revenue, but not the expenses. And it forced us to think and innovate and become a lean company. And so for the last 2 years, that's all we focused on. Our mantra for 2 years straight has been better, not bigger. Better, not bigger. And it goes both ways. I mean, there's now times I'll sit in front of the team and say, hey guys, let's do this. And they'll say, is that better or is that bigger? I'm like, good point. So better, not bigger, better, not bigger. For 2 years straight, we're very lean, very profitable. Things running smoothly. I've got seasoned, good human beings on the team, A+ players. I've become a better leader. And now we position ourselves to scale responsibly, to add flywheels to our company that will add to the company instead of going one avenue and hitting diminishing returns, which we've consistently done in the past. So now we have stabilized this. This is in a good spot. What can we add to the company that will allow us to grow revenue without necessarily growing our expenses extraordinarily?
It's so important that everybody hears that, that lesson that you've learned over the years. And while being in the Collective Genius, you've seen all of these people scaling, irresponsible.
Yep.
And you've seen others responsibly. I think the biggest word that you use there multiple times is profit. I've seen people have, $8 million businesses, but profit less than someone that has a $5 million business. The profit piece of it is, if you want to focus anything, when I say the word scale or you hear the word scale in this business, that's the one that you should be most focused on. I am of the belief in this business, the person that has the most sanity in this business, especially in markets like Midwest markets, mid-size, secondary, tertiary type of markets, you can operate at a super high level and have that life balance, life-work balance that you're looking for in time, because it doesn't exist out of the beginning. But in time, you can have that with a team of 5 or less people. And what I mean by that is, if you're a wholesale operation, let's just use wholesale or fix and flip. Same goes, just a different employee. You can run this business with high-level people and profit, in that range of 35 to 50. 50 is high. It means you're understaffed. But have an EA, high-level executive assistant, a lead manager, an acquisitions person, and either dispo or project management, depending upon your dispo strategy, right? And it's either a TC or one of those roles doubled up, another acquisitions person, something along those lines, right? The rest, most of those, even a TC, you can have someone, a 1099 in some of those roles that, not as important, and run a couple $1 million business and profit $1 million a year. For most people that want to scale, that's not for the big operators, obviously, but for a Midwest style market, you can continue to grow that year over year with really good people. Instead of going out and hiring 10 people that are mediocre, you've got 5 superstars. Right?
Yeah. Someone last week called them generals. That stuck with me. They said, we hire at the gate. As you scale, it changes, but your first 5 to 10 hires need to be generals. Generals or Swiss Army knives. People that are really good at what they can do, and they can do everything.
And smart. That's the other piece of this. Like, that if, when in doubt, if you don't do any other personality tests or profiles, make sure you do a COG score. You need people that are smart, that make smart decisions quickly, right? And correct decisions quickly. You can scale those individuals in any role, and they can follow a process. Again, if you're would depend upon what level you are at. One other thing that I wanted to focus on is that you've presented multiple times here in the community. What I've seen recently from you is an evolution of, I'm going to take this thing and make it my own. I'm not going to do it the way that they do it, but I'm going to make it for what works for me and my business and my market. what I'm referencing here is your social media. Like, there was a time there, especially December of 19, March of 2020, we had a couple people that were really growing the influencer space nationwide.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
everyone was like, you've got to have a presence online, got to have a presence online. You have to. It's part of the gig, especially for, those that want to be influencers on the education space. You had no intentions of ever doing that, but you used that strategy to become almost the local authority via social media in your backyard. Talk to me about how you started that process and
Yeah.
what it looks like today.
And the local authority I think is a key word there, because I've sat through so many presentations about social media, and not the lure of it, but the necessity of it. Like, it's necessary. And I don't know about you, but when I go to hire someone, before I even interview them, I'm going to their social media. Not to qualify or disqualify them, but to learn about them, to figure out who they are. And if they don't have social media or their account's blocked, I'm already, coming up with my own assumptions at this point, or curious why. And it really is, especially based on the generation, I really start to ask why. And Steve Trang did a really good presentation a couple of years ago where they surveyed people on the streets of Phoenix and said, hey, if you were to go do business with someone and you found out they didn't have social media, what'd you think? And overwhelmingly, a scam, not trustworthy, new, not established, whatever. And so that really kind of hit home for me. And so Josh Kohler, longtime member of CG, came in 2 years ago. I finally ripped the Band-Aid off, and I said, hey, will you come in and just do a whole bunch of videos? I'll just post one a week for the next quarter, whatever. And we sat down, and he's like, what's your target audience? Are you trying to get students to mentor? Are you selling a course? Are you raising private money? Are you trying to find buyers? And said, my business runs off of working with sellers, helping sellers achieve freedom. But I know people are not going to Facebook and searching, how do I sell my house? And so for me, it's more of awareness. If they find me, they need to know I'm credible, trustworthy, that they can align with me, someone that they want to invite over to their house. And then anyone and everyone in my market has anything with real estate, I want them to know my name or think about me when the time comes that I can help them out by purchasing or selling a deal. And so it's more for brand awareness, personal brand awareness. And that's exactly what we did. And for over the last 2 years, I've grown, I think, a pretty decent following locally, consistently posting 3 videos a week. And it's all candid, raw, unfiltered. I mean, we have an editor that edits it and shrinks it down to 45 seconds, put captions on it, but it's not raw, charismatic. It's just me, who I am. And at least once a week, literally, I'm out in public and someone says something to me. Hey, I see your videos. I had an older lady stop me at the store last week with my daughter, say, I love watching your videos. I'm going to call you in about a year because I'm ready to sell my house and needs a lot of repairs. It worked phenomenally. I've raised private money because of it. We find buyers on a weekly basis. I get contractors reaching out to me on a daily basis. It just has this holistic approach of making us real, approachable, credible in our market.
Local.
Yes.
Local.
I don't need to be in Maine or California. I just want realtors and title companies. I've had old friends from high school 2 decades ago reaching out, saying, hey man, I see all your videos. Will you come look at this house for me? Yeah. So it's just, you just don't know who's going to be watching that you can work with.
You are one of the first, there's probably 3 or 4 of you that have used this strategy. And I've talked to you about this as well, about becoming a local authority beyond just social media with developing a local podcast as well. A lot of people think when you're doing social media or you're doing podcasts, oh, I have to do it for everybody. No, you don't. You can just do it for your own. We've had Corey Raymond on the show. He's a local authority that does a local podcast in his area. Jeremiah Dalton, same thing. Long Island only does a podcast for Long Island real estate. Same thing with Brett Snodgrass, and you mentioned earlier in Indianapolis, just a indie wholesaling show. These are ways to use the mediums and really pinpoint your niche of what you want to target. I think of the people that I love to follow the most on social media. We all get stuck, where we're down these wormholes of the internet or social media, I should say. And I have turned that if I'm going to do that, I want it to be positive. And so I think about the two people that I watch the most are a gentleman that spreads positivity by giving free haircuts, and another guy from Kansas that mows lawns for people that they're overgrown.
Yeah.
And just is giving back to their local communities. Like if I were going to hire a landscaping service in my home market, that's who I would hire. Somebody that is giving back to the community and is super positive. Like that's how you can utilize social media, especially in your backyard, so people do know you're local, because there's so many people that are buying into our Midwest markets. They know you're local. They see you around. They know that you're real. And that you just said they would be okay with inviting you into your house. We forget that this business, I know there's a lot of people listening to this that do this business virtually. But, for us, the separator is the belly to belly, is being in the same restaurants, is being in the same baseball fields and basketball courts as our neighbors, and growing a true brand. And you've been able to do that through social media. It's been fun to watch you, because you are somebody that, that's not something that I would have ever seen you wanting to do, but you realized that you needed to do it. And you really said, this is the way that I'm going to go about doing it, because I need to build, the local authority when people need me, which they don't need me that often, but when they do, they know that I'm the trusted resource for them.
Right.
It's really cool to see.
At a bare minimum, which is like the interview. If you're on TV, if you're running online ads, if you got direct mail, no matter what, when someone hears about you through marketing, I would venture to say a large percentage of them are going to go to Facebook. Not necessarily Instagram and Twitter and other things, but Facebook is key for the local side. They're going to go to Facebook and just see who you are. And I was just talking to someone the other day. I didn't realize this is still a thing. I don't even remember who it was I was talking to, but they still use a PO box on the return mail of their direct mail. And we stopped doing that years ago. In fact, at one point, I even used my own home address, because people would Google that, Google Maps, see the post office, and immediately scam. Like, why? You have got to go out of your way. The biggest advantage is building that trust and vulnerability and transparency with your target audience. And so just being able to allow them to get something from you, look you up on social media, see you, hear you, know what you're about. I mean, the advantage is huge.
So social media, getting lean. You mentioned a few other things that you're really focused in that's working for you right now in this market. We're, going into, 26 here. This is, starting off the year with a bang. What are you planning on doing? What's working for you right now?
Because of the discipline we have placed in building a leadership team and seasoned, driven people on my team, the wholesaling side of it, the acquisitions, whether we're wholesaling, flipping, can run predominantly without me. And not that I'm not involved, but it can run without me. So we've laid a solid foundation that I feel we are in a disciplined, responsible spot to scale. We get 25 plus leads a week consistently in Springfield, Missouri. That's a lot, in my opinion. And we buy 2 to 3 of those. So that's 20 to 22 people a week that reach out and say, hey, I have a house I need to sell, that we are just saying goodbye to. Now, we follow up with everyone, and sometimes they change their mind 2, 3, 4 months down the road, or something changes their life when it does make sense. But that's a lot of people that want to sell the house. Why are we not helping them? So we have created a retail team. So internally, we have agents now that when someone comes in and maybe their best option isn't a cash offer, we're delighted to say, hey, this doesn't work, but this can work. And so now we're building other options to help people. Instead of trying to do more deals, we're just doing another subset of deals next to it. And so we started that a couple months ago. It's been running smoothly, very successful. And so we're looking to scale that going into 2026.
What I love about this is this wasn't something, a shiny object that you tried to do when you weren't ready.
Right.
I was at our recent meeting for our Premier and CEO groups, and I heard Stephanie Betters tell someone that this you're not ready for, because Doug Hopkins was in the room. And Doug, out of Phoenix, he has a big portion of his monthly revenues retail commissions. Mm-hmm. This exact setup that you're speaking to. And as people are listening to this, I'm sure you're trying to monetize those leads. And if you don't have a retail arm, you're trying to monetize those leads by referring them out to agents. You should continue to do that until you have what Andrew said, which is the wholesaling arm is predictable revenue that can run without me. Now, it doesn't necessarily all the time, but it can. Mm-hmm. He is now in a place where he can build this other arm as a one-stop shop to solve sellers' problems, solve their challenges that they currently have. Doesn't mean all of those will become listings, but he now has that as a service, something that he wouldn't have been ready for a couple of years ago, that now he can. This is with the power of the collective genius. I heard a facilitator tell someone presenting saying, you don't do that right now because you're not ready for it. But I know that you are, and going into 26, doing, what is it? I think you said 8 to 10 deals a month. You now have the opportunity to, probably do another, 5 to 10 listings per month.
Yeah.
In a market where inventory is still low across the United States, and these people are raising their hands, 20 of them a week, you're only signing up 2 of them. So there's a good 10 to 12 a week that you can have conversations with, because even though days on market have gone up, inventory is still low, and there's a service there to help them move that property.
Right. Yep.
Anything else that you got that you're working on right now?
I would say to that, though, is also because I felt like I was in the right position. It was through CG that I met with 2 different people to help me develop this new strategy. So I didn't have to do it on my own. I heard about it years ago. Someone else was doing it. And then when I was ready to make the decision, I reached out to 2 different members, sat on calls with both of them, and used what works for them to develop the strategy for me now that I was ready.
So if you're on the fence about joining a community like this, just listen to what Andrew just said. Like, he didn't have to start this from scratch. He when he was ready, he went to 2 other members to directly go to them to get the blueprint. And They were willing and able to help him out to develop this so he can not go at this blind. With the structure of it real quick, you're bringing on a couple of agents on the team?
Yep. I have a listing agent and a listing coordinator / transaction coordinator. Since he's been with us, and he's just taking low-hanging fruit, not really working the new leads yet. That's on our quarter process, or one of our quarter rocks is to build out that process and redefine it. He's already getting 2 to 3 listings a week already. And so we're off to a really good start. And so Q1, we're looking for a buyer's agent. So now on the back side of those listings to bring buyers or find the buyers, go find them a house. And so we confidently think we'll be 200, 250 listings or buyers in 2026. With not an extreme increase in expenses. There's some overhead. So we're creating significant revenue, but it's also creating significant profit margins.
Yeah.
We're not just chasing our tail.
So much good here, man. Anything else you're excited about in 26?
Spend more time with my family. I mean, I've worked really, really hard the last couple of years fixing a lot of things. And I got 2 young kids, 9 and 6, and I love them to death. My wife is amazing. We've been together for 10 years. So this is the year I'm going to slow down and spend as much time with my family as possible.
Yeah, well, I hope that for you. I wish that for you, having met your family. This is one of the great things about the collective genius. Andrew and my family have built homes together in Ensenada as part of our Homes of Hope, and Scott Myers and Christina Myers. They are saints in my mind. They help us every year coordinate 4 house builds. I think it's now 6 that we've grown to, and been doing that for many, many years. And it's when I start this pod off, I always say that for the people that want to scale beyond just business, the friendship that you and I have, is beyond just business because we've gone through this journey together, not only from a business side, but also that trip in Ensenada is something that my family will never forget, and spending that time with you and your family. So for those that are ever on the fence about joining communities to grow your business, if you can think beyond just the business, everything that you would ever want as a business owner, you can find within this community. And so I appreciate your friendship. And we actually, from this side of things, we actually came in right around the same time. I started in this role summer of 2018. And you came on December of 18. And so it's been great watching your ups and downs, obviously, but that's the journey of an entrepreneur. And I'm very happy for where you are at this point, my friend.
I appreciate you and your friendship as well. It's been a great journey. I'm still rocking it.
Yes, man. Yeah, we got plenty more to do. I'm excited for 2026 for you and all those that are listening. Thank you for spending the time with me today, Andrew. Always great catching up with you, and look forward to our next conversation.
Thanks, Leon.
All right, everyone. If you are looking for that opportunity to learn from great members like Andrew, not just the good. Andrew shared a lot of the trials and tribulations. That's what you want when you are a part of a community. You don't want to hear about all the good. You need to hear about the warts as well. And we've got plenty of those, all of us as entrepreneurs, that we share. If you're looking to join that community, I can't think of one that's better for you. Go to explorecg.com. There you'll find all the information that you need for our 500 plus members, 4 different tiers, 15 years in this business. Guys, there's a community there for you. Fill out the application and we'll talk to you on the other side. For my guest, Andrew, this has been a great episode. As always, we will talk to you next week on the Collective Genius Podcast.
Are you ready to scale your real estate business? Visit thecollectivegenius.com, where real estate investors come to scale. Subscribe to the Collective Genius Podcast and hit the bell icon to be notified when our next episode releases. And thanks for listening.